Okay. Hi, my name's Kennedy, and today I'm going to be presenting my capstone. Okay, so my basic idea was to understand new ways to help others cope with anxieties. I wanted to see how common stress and anxiety is in the real world, and I chose a dental office because I thought, what's a work field that has lots of stress daily and some place that I can just see the stress and the coping mechanisms and things like that. So I thought the dentist office would be a perfect idea and place to go represent my capstone on. So anxiety is the body's natural responses to stress. It can cause negative effects like fatigue, irritability, trouble concentrating, nausea, dizziness, and worsening worry or fear over extended periods of time. Anxiety triggers the natural fight or flight responses, and it's something that almost everyone experiences, especially with the coronavirus. I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing some sort of anxiety right now. So my overall capstone question was, how does the dental field cope with dental anxiety in patients? So going into this, I thought that there wouldn't be many new methods to be aware of because growing up, we're taught different methods and different ways to deal with our fears and stresses and things like that. But um, my outcome was that there are so many deeper ways to do that. And there's way more methods than I realized, like communication, distractions, environment, observations, personal methods, so many different things, so much more than I knew. So, connection to my future. Well, psychology is something that I personally find pretty fascinating and something that interests me and I see as a possible career path for my future. So, in psychology, it comes with understanding how to cope with anxieties and fears for others and just knowing what to do in different situations. So, I think that's something really important just so we can help others. And I just find it so interesting how the brain works and things like that. So, my personal connection, personally, ever since I was little, I've always had a tiny fear of the dentist. I think lots of kids have a fear of the dentist. I still have a little one today. Um, and anxiety and stress is something that I experience a lot just in like talking to groups and things like that. New people makes me a little bit nervous. I also have a family member who's in the dental field. So growing up, I was always told stories of her day and things like that. So I've always kind of heard about it, but I've never actually like watched a day. I've been to the dentist, but I've never actually like had a reason to just watch and things like that, you know? So it always kind of interests me, like the different things like that. So methods. There were a lot of methods that I learned, and some of them were small talk, which is one of the patients came in and he had a hockey shirt on. So the dental assistant said, "Oh, my son plays hockey. What team do you play for?" Just so it's kind of a more calming and natural environment. They would also bring up previous dental visits just so the patient can feel cared for and remembered. Um, they would give the patient some sense of authority. So they would say, tap your shoulder if you want us to stop, and you're in control, just so they felt like they had some, if something went wrong, they could stop the whole situation. They gave explanations to what was happening. So they'd say, like, I'm going to tap your tooth, or I'm going to put some freezing gel on your gums, things like that, just because you can't see what's going on. So it gives you a sense of knowing what's happening, even though you can't see it. They would give solutions to different things. Like one patient that he was pretty nervous, he kept shaking his feet, which would shake the whole chair. So the dental assistant said, "Could you possibly wiggle your toes instead of shaking your feet?" Which I thought was pretty awesome because rather than saying, "Can you stop moving at all?" she gave him a different solution because that was his way of releasing that stress. And yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Um, They had distractions like a television, they had a clean environment, a stress ball to release physical stress. They would use patients' first or last names, whatever they preferred, just so it would be a more personal connection. And one thing I really noticed was that they would hide dental instruments because those silver tools can be pretty scary to look at, big needles and things like that. So they would use certain movements just to prevent the patient from seeing the dental instruments. So why did I choose this? Well, I chose this because, like I said, I can relate to fear of the dentist and in daily life. And I was always curious, growing up with a family member, I heard stories. I was curious of how it actually worked because I've never seen behind the scenes, you know? Um, and I also thought that anxiety is something that is so common in our everyday life that learning new methods to help reduce anxiety in ourselves and others is something that we can use today and in our future. So basically what I did was I reached out to Valley Fair Dental and I set up a day where I could come in and observe on the side with the patient's permission, of course. And I basically just took notes and did some research and yeah, and asked some questions to the dentist who was there. Yeah. So overall, this experience, I learned that there are so many different ways to express stress. For example, there was one patient who said, I hate this place, I could punch something. And aggression was his way of releasing and showing his stress and fears. But he wasn't serious about it. And it just got me thinking of how many different ways there are to represent fears and stresses, like um, laughing, aggression, things like that, talking, not talking. There are just so many different ways for each person. And I also learned how many ways there are to cope with anxieties and fears, which was pretty interesting. So anxiety is something that can affect anyone's life, really, and it can prevent us from even fulfilling our dreams and wishes. Like on my vision board, I had a photo of a skydiver, which is something that I have wanted to do forever. But then I was thinking about it, and if I was actually given the chance to skydive, I don't know if I would, because just the fear of so many things that could go wrong pop up in my head, which is preventing me from doing something that I really would like to try. My jump from middle school to high school was a pretty scary experience. Everyone was so welcoming and it was awesome, but I didn't really know anyone going into it because I did cross catchment. I only knew about 2 people going to Riverside, so I was pretty nervous. But then as years passed, I made so many new friends and I learned how to communicate without my fears overcoming that, kind of taking control. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. Um, my process and struggles. Well, I had a great experience overall. I learned different coping mechanisms like vocabulary, actions, environment, knowledge, just so many things. And I did, however, struggle with my own nerves because going into it, I was pretty scared to go into the dentist office and observe because I didn't know many people and I thought I was always intruding or in the way. But as time passed, I got a lot more comfortable and I found it fascinating. And in the end, everything went pretty well. So some core competencies that I used was communication, questioning, investigation, things like that. I got to engage with others, which allowed me to observe and ask questions about things that I was interested in. Um, and I learned a deeper understanding of coping mechanisms with anxiety. After learning all these coping mechanisms too, I feel that I can use them personally and I can share them with others so that we can reduce stresses for different situations. Um, Overall, I'm happy that I was able to do this project and I thought that it was really fun and I learned tools that I can use for the rest of my life, which was pretty cool. So yeah, that was my capstone. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.